We are so excited today to welcome Matt Blake. He is a 2007 graduate of the College of the Holy Cross, where he was a member of the baseball program and a team captain his senior year. Upon graduation, he took a bit of an untraditional path into professional baseball, which I know we'll touch upon today. But over the past several years, his career has accelerated from a non-baseball path right out of college to now being the pitching coach for the New York Yankees. Matt, thanks so much for being willing to chat today. Before we delve too much into your time with Holy Cross, I just wanted to first touch on your first year with the Yankees. How was this entire season? I'm sure you never really anticipated your first season as an MLB pitching coach being during a pandemic, but generally, what are some of your biggest takeaways from the 2020 season?
Yeah, I guess the nice thing is I never anticipated to be a major league pitching coach at all. So to put it in the pandemic category was just fitting with everything else. So as a starting point, yeah, it was definitely a weird year, but everything was kind of, new for me in general. So, having been in the last, 3-4 years in Cleveland and kind of the background in a front office role and, working primarily with the minor leagues, jumping to New York City and the major league environment, everything was kind of new as it was. So, I wasn't as aware of some of the changes that, maybe have been going on around, just the COVID environment relative to the regular major league environment. So in that sense, it was, all refreshing. Definitely some challenges in terms of just, navigating a lot of the unknowns early on, the schedule hiccups, things like that. And then obviously, getting used to the COVID protocols was a big part of just getting guys comfortable in the environment so that they could play baseball. But overall, once we kind of got going and the season kind of got underway, it was baseball as usual. And then obviously the only difference was just no fans in the stands. So, but it was, either surprising or alarming that it just felt like the game once you kind of got going. The fans obviously are a huge component of it, but, they factored in some, white crowd noise that kind of at least put the, a cap on the environment. So you could focus on the game and not worry about the empty seats. But overall, it was a great experience and obviously looking forward to getting back at it next year.
I guess, what did it mean to you, especially all these delays, uncertainty, kind of everything COVID related? What did it mean to you to finally put on the pinstripes and represent such a historic team? And what was that feeling like going to the ballpark every day?
Yeah, it was one of those where it was almost like a bad dream where like you've kind of worked to get to this pinnacle position and then it's kind of like unraveling in front of you in like a once in a generation, once in a century, pandemic that's, taking away the opportunity to be a part of the Yankee tradition and be out there with, a historic signing of Garrett Cole and, some of that stuff. But I think when we kind of finally got to the, the end line, it was very much kind of just be happy where your feet are and kind of just keep kind of plodding along. And, once we got the spring training 2.0, I was like, okay, let's just take this one day at a time. Who knows if we're actually going to get to, even opening day, which was July 23rd, let alone, to the postseason. But like once we finally got to put the Yankee uniform on and, it was Garrett Cole versus Max Scherzer on opening night, it was kind of like a little bit of a pinchy moment. You're like, oh, this is real. So, from there kind of just locked into the actual job at hand. But yeah, it was definitely a surreal moment.
Just to backtrack a little bit, you're a local guy from New Hampshire. I guess, how did you decide to play baseball collegiately and how did you land at Holy Cross specifically?
Yeah, so I always enjoyed playing sports growing up, and baseball was probably the one I was most talented at. And I was playing golf and basketball, and previously soccer and football and kind of everything. But baseball was the one I was kind of gravitated towards, and kind of got playing on some local travel teams in high school. And Coach Najarian at the time had seen me play in a regional tournament in New Hampshire, and kind of just started the recruiting process and kind of went through, a pretty typical recruiting process. I probably wasn't a highly touted prospect, but I had, some options between, some of the D3s and D2s in the area, whether it was Wheaton College, Stonehill, Holy Cross, and then, BC and UVM and those type of schools. Holy Cross was kind of the perfect fit for me from just a balanced, academic and athletic workload and kind of the competition level and things of that nature. So I think for me, it kind of just fit a bunch of the things I was trying to look for, and it probably gave me the most balanced experience I was looking for.
When you were a Holy Cross student, did you have aspirations of being involved with professional baseball? I know you said at the beginning, like you never even thought you'd be an MLB pitching coach, but was that something you thought like could be cool? Was it actually kind of a goal or did it ever even cross your mind?
Yeah, it's one of those like at the time you're preparing in your education for your life after baseball, so you're never really sure what that's going to look like when you're a college student. I was a psychology and philosophy major, so mine was even more open ended. I kind of had a little bit of a different path from a typical Holy Cross student in that way. And then as I was coming down the stretch of my senior year, it was realistic, or it was becoming more and more unrealistic that I was going to play professional baseball. And we had some loose connections to, professional baseball with Brian Abraham was on our team at the time, and he had kind of left to go help out with the Blue Jays. We had some local affiliates with JP Ricciardi, who was, from the Worcester area, who was a GM at the time with the Blue Jays. So in the back of my mind, I was like, wow, that would be really exciting or really cool to do, but there wasn't like a natural path to get there at the time. So, for me, it was kind of like, okay, like, my parents have helped me get to this point. Maybe I show them that I can, make money on my own. And that's why I navigated away from professional sports initially. And I basically went to, a sales job in local business in Concord, New Hampshire. And that was kind of where I kind of got my feet grounded after Holy Cross.
So when you reflect on your collegiate playing career, what do you remember the most about your time playing for Holy Cross? And what are some of your favorite either on-field memories or off-field memories?
Yeah, no, we had a really good group of players that we bonded really well in terms of like the program was kind of in transition at the time when we were coming in 2003. Coach Najarian was still kind of the associate head coach, and Fran O'Brien was the head coach, but it was kind of set up that, Coach Najarian was likely to take over in the next year or two that we were getting there. And so we had about, I think, 13 freshmen that came into my class. It was a large group that kind of banded together. So we had a really tight knit group that was, kind of the fabric of our social environment on the Hill. And then during that time, our sophomore year, we became, road warriors because they were working on the new stadium that was going over fit and field. So we didn't play a single home game that season. And then to come back my junior and senior year and have the brand new stadium that the Worcester Tornadoes kind of helped put on for us was great. And, just some of those, trips through the years when we were taking our Florida trips down to IMG and Bradenton. And then, sometimes the next couple of years we had gone to UNC and or North Carolina and played Duke and a couple other schools. So, just the road trips with the guys were awesome. And then, just our time, around the group together was, what made the most of it.
One more thing on Holy Cross specifically, and you touched on this a little bit, but how did your Holy Cross education prepare you for your journey into professional baseball?
So I probably was a little bit of like a wide path to get there, kind of a, roundabout, if you will, where it was, psychology and philosophy, and my dad being an engineer, my mom worked in business. They both were kind of like, what are you going to do with that? They weren't necessarily sure like what the outcome could be with, a psychology and philosophy degree. But, for me, when I got on the Hill and kind of started taking courses, I just, economics and finance and accounting were kind of like natural paths for a lot of guys. And it didn't resonate for me as well. And, I started taking some, the psych intro courses, and I think I kind of gravitated a little bit more to the social sciences and some of the conversations around group dynamics and learning about people. And I really liked that. And then kind of as I ended up taking on a philosophy minor just from some of the questions they were asking were kind of interesting. And I felt like they were like getting at like, fundamental truths and like kind of the universal, nature of, being and things like that. And a lot of people were kind of like, where does that go? And whether that was, law school or teaching or, whatever it might be, I was comfortable with the skills that I was learning and kind of the way to think and kind of approach people and understand people, I think was going to give me an avenue anywhere really. And then I think whether it was in sales or, getting into coaching, and I think that it kind of gave me something to kind of anchor to in terms of like relating to people, asking questions, learning about people, helping lead people. For me, it really does fit in every day. So it was never really a question about, how am I using it? I was using it every day.
And you talked a little bit about this, but can you just sort of walk us through that journey from graduation until now, starting out in sales? Kind of what was the step-by-step in between?
Yeah. So, obviously coming down the stretch of your senior year, you're kind of starting to feel the pressure a little bit of, okay, what am I going to do after May? And, a lot of guys have been taking, jobs with Cintas and IBM and some of the financial positions that were available to, the recruiters that were coming on campus. And, for me, it was just trying to find something that I could, sink my teeth into, learn a little bit more about, basically the business world. And, there was a company called Concord Litho, which is a commercial printing business in Concord, New Hampshire. It allowed me to live at home and save some money and, get a kind of like, hands-on learning in a kind of introductory fashion. So that was my first year. But for me, like as I got in there after the first 6 months, it was more like, wow, I don't know if I can do this every single day for the next 40 years. So like, what else is there? And I think as I kind of kept going, my dad had coached me growing up, and while I was still local, we kind of picked up a town team and, coached together as kind of just like a fun thing to do around working. And, one thing led to another, and kids kind of wanted some private lessons out of coaching. And I started building this like side business on the weekends at a local indoor facility. And so kind of like 2 lessons became 4 and 4 became 8. And all of a sudden I was doing like 30 lessons on Saturday and Sunday, making more money on those 2 days than I was in my sales job Monday through Friday. So I was like, okay, like this is starting to become something a little bit more than just like a little hobby on the side. So it was about, 2008, 2009, and the economy was starting to fall off around that time. So they were already looking to maybe downsize the sales position in Concord. And I kind of just took that as like a leaping off point to go full in on coaching, and basically went down to Massachusetts, where I was living with some college roommates at that point, and went over to Lincoln Sudbury and Cressy Performance and kind of started building like a little bit of a pool of, clientele and coaching and instructing there. And, did that for about 7 years in the like kind of Metro West area of Massachusetts before I joined on with the Indians in 2016, and basically worked in their player development system from 2016 through 2019 before I became a pitching coach with the Yankees in 2020.
So you did an interview with the New York Times a few months ago that I was reading the other day. It referred to you as a baseball outsider, as a quote. Never having played professionally, as you just mentioned, coaching at the high school level pretty recently.
Yep.
How do you think that being a baseball outsider has given you an advantage or a leg up, especially in a sport that can be so kind of tradition based?
Yeah, I think just given that I knew I didn't have like the natural background to fall, on and kind of use as, experience I had played, I didn't necessarily have connections that way. It was more of like looking for what were some things that could separate me. And so at that time, it was learning more about the body and how the body worked, and understanding how strength training could help a pitcher. And that's where Cressy Sports Performance kind of came into play. I was doing my own research on, biomechanics and things like that, but didn't really have anywhere to go to, maybe bounce ideas off. And I realized that they were kind of basically training baseball players, but didn't have a skill side of it. So we kind of partnered up, and I basically, kind of charted my own path by integrating, pitching instruction and strength training in, kind of a more fundamental way than maybe the traditional baseball people were doing. It was more like jargon around baseball and mechanics that were more like kind of truisms of like, what coaches would classically say, but maybe not like fundamentally sound, and like how we're actually training people to move better and perform at higher levels. So I think by kind of separating myself on that path initially, it allowed me to kind of come back in and maybe skip some steps, because I had a different skill set than, your classic pitching coach would have, and allowed me to kind of see things in a little bit different way.
What do you think you've learned about yourself this season? How do you think you've grown as a coach after just 1 year with the Yankees?
Yeah, I think just like anything, when I was first taking this job, it was obviously like, okay, this is way outside my comfort zone as far as, living in New York City, brighter lights with the focus on, the major league team and the expectations for the New York Yankees. So I think just knowing that I was going to be uncomfortable in this environment at times and be challenged by whether it was the players that were expecting me to lead them or just the environment of expecting to win every night. I think just learning how to handle, the failures on such a visible stage, if things don't go well on the field, or we don't get to where we want to go, and, understanding that there's criticism coming in from all different angles, whether it's, family, players, fans, social media. And it's like just learning how to navigate that and filter it out and make sense of it all, and just kind of stay true to like, okay, we have a process that we feel good about, and we're trying to incorporate different things into the player plans and push the players to get better, and, put a competitive product on the field at night. And, some of the noise isn't helpful to kind of listen to and adjust our plan, and some of it's just noise. So you got to like kind of learn to kind of just trust yourself and, stay true to who you are and be authentic in that way, and not, kind of go a bunch of different directions because all these different things are pulling on you. So I think just kind of learning how to deal with that was a little bit different, but kind of in the same vein as, some of the other things you've done up to that point.
I guess, what does this off season look like for you? What are some things you're going to be working on personally, professionally, and also with the team in anticipation of the 2021 season?
Yeah, so right now we're spending a lot of time on, player plans kind of for the off season for players, that were on our roster last year that will be definite returners. Trying to spend some time, going over what they should be working on essentially this off season to be ready for next year. So kind of collaborating with a lot of our office, whether it's player development staff or analysts, things along those lines to put together the most comprehensive plan for the player that he can execute. So a lot of Zoom calls with both our staff and the players, and then really trying to dig in on my own. I've got a lot of free time. I'm used to in the front office world, you're kind of always going. So there's always just a 12-month schedule where there's always something in the coaching realm. It's kind of like full throttle season and then full stop in the off season. And now it's trying to make sense of, what those 4 months look like. And it's actually been, pretty rewarding, a lot of time at home to, obviously with COVID going on, you're kind of limited in, some of the travel that we might normally do this time of year, whether it's to conventions or seminars. So doing a lot more of that online, and really making use of Zoom as best as possible to, kind of take part in some different conversations with people.
Matt, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us today. It's been great to hear about your experiences and your path to Major League Baseball. I hope you're able to enjoy some rest this off season, and best of luck to you going forward. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sarah.